Hello. As you will see, this is the recording that disappeared from last evening's lecture. So I am going to briefly begin. Again, I apologize for the disrupted session that we had last night, and I'm working to make sure it doesn't occur in the future. Thank you so much for your patience. So last night we did watch The Deep Dive, which is from 1999. And the reason I had you watch it is just an incredible example of a different environment and how organizations can work effectively. So what we did is I asked a couple of presents, did you see ego present? And what most of you said last night is no, there wasn't any ego present. What you saw was a fully functioning team where people moved almost effortlessly into leadership positions. What you also saw was leadership had to be available when it was the best choice. In other words, if a particular person assumed responsibility, it wasn't because they had the tenure, but rather they had the experience and exposure and could help. That allowed the progress to be almost effortless and to also support the development of the individuals in the group. So Ideo is the name of the organization. Fail often in order to succeed sooner. When you looked at the deep dive video we saw from Nightline, you saw challenges and benefits from Ideo. The challenges, you got to think differently. You can't be structured in a very specific culture. You must be free-flowing, but you also have to know what you can offer and also appreciate what others offer. Finally, you'll notice that the people that have the most seniority oftentimes aren't the ones with the ideas, and that's what we have to promote, that ideas come from any level of the organization. So in terms of the culture, I'd like you to reflect on what this culture is, and I'd like us to talk more about organizational culture. So Shine in 2004 observed that organizational culture is present in all levels of the organization, and it evolves, particularly if it's allowed to evolve. From the front line where people are working day to day with clients to the CEO suite, culture is present. Cultures are observed in 3 specific levels: artifacts, espoused values, and basic assumptions. Artifacts are those very obvious things we see, like how the furniture, how the offices are set up, what level an office might be. And then it's also dress, and I shared last night that I worked at a women's college, and I was always struck by the fact that their mode of dress was that you had to dress up in suits and pantyhose. In some organizations, that would be a horrifying thing. You would see many organizations have jeans. I worked at Springfield College. It was primarily a school associated with athletics. People would always wear sweatpants and sweatshirts. I was considered well-dressed because I wore jeans, a shirt, and a blazer. Every place has a different value to the way we dress. Is dress supported by individuality, or is it subscribed to? If you worked at IBM in the 90s, they wore blue suits, white shirts, red ties, and if you were a woman, you wore a sensible pump, and if you were a man, you wore a tasseled loafer. So espoused values, these are what the prophets or the founders say. What has been held by the organization? Often it's also captured in their mission statement. And these are values, we're student-centric at Goodwin. We're student focused. That's a value. If you don't subscribe to the values of the organization, you can find yourself excommunicated or even shunned, in the sense that you are an outsider who might still be operating in the organization. Basic assumptions are theories that are evident and not easily challenged. So, different cultures, different expectations. Let's talk about different kinds of culture. First of all, there is what we would refer to as a person culture. This is horizontal, is most applicable. In other words, everyone is on the same level. The organization is valued more than the total. The individual is valued more than the organization, meaning that individual values and beliefs are incredibly important. This can be difficult to sustain, and as organizations grow, often they find themselves with priorities and people. Also budgets. In the pandemic, a person culture might find itself really at risk because you want the greatest amount of return investment. So priorities can change where money is budgeted. Market cultures are very results oriented, and they're operating on getting things done. Adaptive, this is a free flowing one, and it adapts to what happens. It is new ideas, personal expression. And adhocracy is more about a dynamic entrepreneurial approach. This is where you take risk taking and there's innovation, and you will find that there's a free flow automatically to this. If we have a power, role culture, or hierarchy, power is one leader makes all the decisions. There's frequently a lot of discontent in this because if the ideas aren't created or supported by top leadership, they never reach the street. The rapid decisions can also control strategy. Power and information become collateral that you use. Role cultures, we have functional structures where individuals know their jobs, report to superiors, value efficiency and accuracy. Efficiency meaning that there is no waste, and effectiveness meaning they reach their goals. This also means you would never talk to the president if you don't report to the president. You must always go by the line of report. Hierarchies are very similar to role cultures. They may be even more structured than the role culture is. This is a statement from the former CEO of IBM, Louis Gerstner. And what Gerstner says is essentially, he used to think that, culture was part of, vision, strategy, marketing. Truth is, it's everything. And it is. Everything that happens within an organization is impacted by the culture. And the culture is established by leadership, which is why we always need to make sure we're in the right place with our gifts. I've said this frequently, that, people who work in an organization, you better like what they offer, because if you don't, you won't go very far. Task culture and clan culture, commitment is to the task at hand. Teams are formed, there's expertise, and you might even find a matrix, because in a team format, you could pull teams from different aspects of the organization, so you can end up with a matrix where you report to more than one person. Or you can have a clan culture, and clan culture is where we get together almost in a family-like way. Basketball, games, softball, chili cook-offs. Frances Hesselbein has a wonderful view of culture. Culture doesn't change because we want it to. Culture changes because the organization changes or is transformed. It has to reflect the reality of the peoples working there. So, we have looked at some basic aspects of culture. I do want to suggest that if you want to learn more about culture, here's an address at the top of this slide, the Gotham Culture, and it is an incredible site. They do a lot of business, but you can find articles they've written and also some new and exciting options. Here are the references, and I think you might find some great reading in there. The final thing I want to share is, of course, a Simon Sinek quote. Simon Sinek said, Starbucks was founded around the experience and environment of their stores. By the way, Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks, developed it based on Italian cafes where people would wander in and strike up conversations with people they may not even have known. Starbucks was about a space with comfortable chairs, lots of power outlets, tables and desks where we could work, spend as much time as we wanted without any pressure to buy. The coffee became incidental. Thank you so much for paying attention to this latest lecture. If you have any questions, please let me know.